front, and I will be doing a presentation showing the carpals, the bones that surround the carpals, and a bit of information about your carpals or mine, anybody's. If you have them, that's great. If you don't, then at least you'll know something about them. And I have my anatomy textbook from my anatomy class. And so for this presentation, like I said, we'll be talking about the carpals. Now, what are your carpals? First, I'll start by showing the posterior or dorsal side of my left hand. I could use the example this way sometimes or this way, so you just have to follow with me. Now, your carpal bones are part of your appendiculoskeletal muscles, appendiculoskeletal system. You have your axial skeletal system, which consists of your thoracic cage, anything between, like your cranial bones, so from your head down to where your rib cage stops. And then you have your appendicular skeleton, which is anything arms and legs down, starting from obviously your hip bones, your pelvic bones. So in the appendiculoskeletal muscles, we're talking about your hand here, and in that we have your carpals. So again, what are the carpals? They're the bones located around your wrist in the middle here, and within your carpal bones there are 8 of them, starting this side all the way here. I'll name them. The 4 bones on top are your superior carpal bones, and then under that you have your inferior carpal bones, and in between that you have a running carpal tunnel. Also around the carpals we have your metacarpals, which are inferior. Anything inferior is down. So inferior to your carpal bones you have metacarpals. There are 5 of them. So you have 10, but there are 5 because we're using one hand. The 5 metacarpals, right after the carpals, you have your phalanges, which are, these ones are called your proximal phalanges. Anything proximal in anatomy is closer to proximal phalanges. And then you have 4, not 5, 4 middle phalanges, and then you have 5 distal phalanges. Next one, the carpals and its surrounding bones. So right now you've seen the inferior bones, which are your metacarpals, proximal phalanges, middle phalanges, and distal phalanges. And then here you have your radius, and then you have your ulna. And these are just the 2 major bones of your arm. And it's good to know, just because your carpals sit between your radius and your ulna and your metacarpals and phalanges. Now each hand, for this hand, you have your, if you were to take the 2 of them, we have 28 of the phalanges. And with that being said, phalanges is plural for all of your phalanges. But with only one, if I were to say the thumb, it doesn't have a middle phalanx. Phalanx is singular. So here the thumb had 1 proximal phalanx and 1 distal phalanx, but no middle phalanx. Phalanx is singular. Phalanges is more than 1, so it's plural. and then more from the bones surrounding the carpals. So you had your inferior bones, and then now you have your superior bones. So this one being the radius, which sits right on top of your scaphoid. I haven't named any of the carpal bones yet, but the scaphoid is one of them. And so the radius sits right above it. If you were to look at your radius like a pen, and we'll say this is the end of your radius, and this will be the scaphoid. So it just sits right above it. And then we have our ulna, which also has a little thing that you can't really see it on your anatomy, but if you were to look at a picture of a skeleton, you'll notice that the ulna has a little curve at the very bottom of it called the ulnar styloid process. An ulnar styloid process is just a little hanging bone from the ulna itself. And so you can see that the ulna is closest to your pinky, so it's superior. Superior is above. It's above your pinky, and it sits on top of the lunate. That's one of the carpal bones. The triquetrum is one of the carpal bones too, and the pisiform. And the pisiform is a tiny little bone that sits right under the ulnar styloid process. And that's for your superior bones above the carpal bones. And then you have your inferior bones, which are under your carpal bones. So how many carpal bones do we have? If you were to search carpals, normally you get carpal tunnel syndrome, or you see your carpals. There's many different carpals. But in the human anatomy, the picture that I have, you can find it on Google or anything, Google images, x-ray images, and you can see the bones. Sometimes if they're drawn, like a clip art image, they look close together. But if you look at an x-ray, they're actually separated, and they're not 4 and 4 sitting on top of each other. They're around different areas. So when you have that, in this image, it looks like they're all sitting on top of each other, and that is to help remember the shape and the names. And with that being said, you have your scaphoid bone, and then after the scaphoid bone, you have the lunate, which is right beside it, and then you have your triquetrum, so it has 3 of the sides of anything that's tri, and then quatrium, so 3 and 4. So you know that it has either 3 sides, or there's something in that origin. And then after the triquetrum, then you have your pisiform. And the pisiform is actually a very, very tiny bone sitting right beside your triquetrum. And sometimes you don't even see it, but it's hiding behind there. And if you can remember, the pisiform is a little tiny bone that also sits under the ulnary process. And so the pisiform, those are part of the inferior carpal bones. Inferior, so the top carpal bones. You have the 4: scaphoid, lunate, triquetrum, and pisiform. And so for the inferior, the lower carpal bones, you have your trapezium, trapezoid, capitate, and hamate. And with the reference that I have from the book, you will be able to, if you were to look up the carpal bones, and you can see that some of them do sit right on top of the other, but they're not as close. and those are your 8 carpal bones. So you have scaphoid, lunate, triquetrum, and pisiform. And then right under it, you have your trapezium, trapezoid, capitate, and hamate. And those are your inferior carpal bones. Now, how do you remember the carpal bones? I looked actually on a YouTube video that showed some lovers try positions that they can't handle. Some lovers try positions that they can't handle. So, sum is for scaphoid, lovers is for lunate, triquetrum, position is for pisiform, that is for trapezium, they, trapezoid, can't, capitate, handle is a hamate. And what is carpal tunnel syndrome? There aren't real, a lot of the research that I did, some of them say that there isn't like a real, not that there isn't like a real syndrome or whatever, but it's there. It's just that the diagnosis is hard because of the differences that the bones have in them. But with people that have any high blood pressure or anything that, or hypothyroidism, anything that involves fat in the body, compressing or anything like that, or if you repetitively do things with your hands, then you're more likely to get the carpal tunnel syndrome. It can also happen to people in a very young age. And so with that being said, the carpal tunnel itself gets affected from all the compression, and that's how people get carpal tunnel syndrome. It's from repetitive activities and also compression of the blood supply and stuff like that. Did you know that? Well, if you didn't know, well, now you will know that this scaphoid bone is actually one of the most frequently fractured bones out of your carpal bones. And the reason to that is when we fall, you're more likely to stretch your hand and then you fall over it. And with that, it's more likely for your scaphoid bone to fracture. And because there's a low blood supply to these regions of your body, that causes the healing process to be very, very slow. And so the things to remember, you have some lovers try positions that they can't handle. And you have your radius and your ulna, and then you have your phalanges. And so the carpal tunnel syndrome has to do with inflammation. That's the word I was looking for. It's when inflammation occurs within the carpal tunnel itself. And all the carpal bones, because of the way they're sitting, so you all have the carpal tunnel itself. It's just that you get that syndrome when you get the inflammation all around it and between it, and then it stops you from being able to grab something or being able to move your hand sometimes. And that is everything or simple things that you need to know about the carpals and the carpal bones that are around it. You'll know that you have your scaphoid, your lunate, your triquetrum, your pisiform, trapezium, trapezoid, capitate, and hamate. This is the posterior view of the way that I was using it, and that is everything. So keep learning. Thank you.